All right, let's get started. Good God, it's bright. Hey everybody, Josh the RV Nerd of Bish's RV here in my Coldwater, Michigan hometown superstore, giving you another monthly-ish industry updates. As long as you people want to continue to listen to me yammer on about camping stuff, I'll continue to do my best to put it out there. It's getting to be the time of year where things are quieting down a little bit, so there's not any like big news going on, but I stumbled through, I kind of peeled through the highlights of what's going on in the industry to get you a look at a few things today, including some interesting changes in some RV legislation that may potentially have some pretty significant consumer benefit, currently in a limited scope and scale, but very real possibility of that growing and expanding out there. Also, I have a major cautionary thing to watch out for in the used RV market coming for you today, and a bunch of other stuff, including what has become a pretty mainstay of these videos, the industry market analysis portion of the video. Also, real quick mention, if you follow RV Business Magazine, you may notice this familiar idiot was on the cover of it recently. It's mostly an issue that's like written for dealers to help be better dealers or something like that. But if you're curious, I'll leave a link to it in the video description if you want to check that out. But short of that, let's get going. Over this past month, between these last two industry updates, there was a laborer strike and a port closure that threatened to potentially have some pretty widespread effects. A lot of people are asking me, like, well, how's that going to affect the RV industry? And really, thankfully, it was resolved quickly enough and amicably enough that I don't think there's really going to be any major widespread impact in either the RV industry or most anything. The strike, the work stoppage ended very quickly overall compared to some of the things that we've seen in the past. And as a result, although there was a little bit of a backlog of ships and containers that needed unloaded, it was nothing like we saw during that COVID era. The Taylor Swift COVID era. But I reached out to some of the contacts that I made during that pandemic period and kind of asked them, and they're like, yeah, it kind of wrapped up quick enough that really, for the most part, it's kind of just a quick little footnote in news stories, and it doesn't look like it's really going to blow anything out of proportion. So those shortages, the price spikes that we saw in the COVID phase, I don't think we're going to expect that. And from what I've seen from recent RV pricing updates in the new RV market, it looks like that's really holding true. So good news, we kind of skirted some disaster there. And something happened recently in California that's the kind of thing that tends to turn a lot of heads and raise a lot of eyebrows. Forest River has announced that they're ending all their California production. Some RV manufacturers only have like one production facility. Most of those are located in Indiana. There are a couple brands though, like Winnebago Motorized is, you know, they're made out in Iowa. Northwood ORV, they're made out in Oregon. A lot of your really high volume major manufacturers though often have like Eastern and Western production. Forest River has some brands that were such high volume they actually had a third regional production, one of which was located in California. Basically, something that's potentially affecting around 400 employees at those facilities there is that RV production will be ending basically by the end of this year, but those facilities are being converted over into customer service facilities. So, they may be doing things like potentially factory warranty repairs in certain extreme situations. They might be, providing a little more warehousing to get some parts and things fulfilled out to customers. A variety of services and functions might be there. Absolutely. Well, I'm not trying to mince words and to spin something in some other way. If RV production, if RV sales were at a level that they could probably continue to support production there, I'm sure that they absolutely would. They are pivoting, and I do appreciate that they're investing in customer service as a result. But, you know, it is happening. Now, what about the brands? What about the things that are built there? As far as I understand, there's pretty much nothing built there that isn't also built at another facility. So the majority of the production of the brands that would normally come out of those facilities is basically just going to be absorbed and picked up into the existing Indiana facilities. So they're not going to stop offering various models or floor plans or brands or anything like that. What it could do, though, is cause some customers in the West Coast area to actually have higher price tags, not as a result of, like, the RVs built in Indiana, they don't cost more than an RV built out west in California, but to get that RV now shipped all the way out to those western zones, that may incur some very serious shipping charges. Like, I did a little internal experiment once. I looked at a Jayco Eagle delivered here to my Coldwater, Michigan hometown store. We pay absolutely minimum freight here. It's only a couple $100. To get that exact same equipped RV out to our Davenport, Iowa store was like starting to get close to $2,000 in shipping. To get it out to Omaha, Nebraska was like $3,000. To get it to Idaho, $4,000. To get it to our Oregon store was $5,000. You could have the exact same RV with up to $5,000 in difference on a price tag simply because of the shipping that's out there. Now, we represent that in our price tag. In some places, we'll try to hit you with the shipping charges after the fact. Everybody does it differently. But that is something that that's a potential situation where it could be possible, depending on the brand and depending on the distribution, where the consumer may need to foot the additional bill as a result. Because at the end of the day, manufacturers don't pay for it, dealers don't pay for it. At the end of the day, you pay for it. And that's always an important distinction. It was also recently announced that the Winnebago RV production divisions were going to get some new leadership placed over them. Over the Towable Group, it was recently announced that Don Clark, the president of Grand Design, would be essentially promoted to the group president of Winnebago Towables, or something. I may have that verbiage incorrect, but that's the idea. Now, some people are asking, so what does that mean? Does that, by the way, if you weren't aware, since about 2015, Grand Design has been a member of the Winnebago family, essentially. Anyway, but I've had a lot of people reaching out to me on this, like going, so what's going to happen here? Like, is Winnebago going to start getting fifth wheels again? Are Grand Design and Winnebago Towables, are they going to start to become twins? Are they going to be homogenized? Don't know. Guys, it's too early. Like, the changeover, the change in position, I don't think is actually even official until the day that this video releases. So I've not yet had the opportunity to see anything nor hear enough to give you any additional insights on that. I would be kind of curious. What do you think should happen? Should they continue to offer very separate products? Or is it a situation where you think that there would be some benefit to some homogenization there? I don't know. I'm kind of curious. What would you like to see happen between those families there? And with another year gone by, the RVDA DSI Awards have come out yet again. If you're not familiar with these, it is basically, it's a case where essentially, it's based more on dealer input than consumer input. So I want to give this the proper shape and understanding as to what this designation represents. But it's based on quality/reliability, parts fulfillment, warranty service, and overall sales. So again, if a dealer's selling a bunch of something and making a bunch of money on it, they may be inclined to vote for it a little bit better. But there is a little bit of a trend here. Sometimes people are like, listen, I'm new about this. I've heard these different stories. Which brand should I look at? The brands that are listed over here are, generally speaking, brands that seem to have a little bit better overall experience out there. Now, again, it is voted by dealers, but I can tell you most of the time, if a dealer's having a bad experience with a brand, if a customer's having a bad experience with a brand and they're making the dealer's life a headache, the dealer tends to stop liking that brand. So if you're not sure where to begin your RV adventure, maybe consider the brands that are scrolling over here on the side of the screen. Now, just to help you understand what we're looking at, there are certain cases, like you might notice entry just says Jayco. That means that like every member of the Jayco family was voted and qualified for this list. If there's specific things that are listed out, then only those members within the entire overall family were voted into that list. And again, I'm not trying to present this to you as like you should just absolutely go out and buy these brands. I still think you should do your due diligence and you should look through these and you should make sure that it meets your confidence levels. But you may notice if you get into some user and owners groups, there's a lot of names appear here that generally are brands that also have really high levels of consumer confidence. So it's a good place to start your research, but maybe not necessarily a guarantee of the place to end. Hope that helps. First of all, unless you've been hiding under a rock, you're well aware of the natural disasters that have affected a lot of folks, especially in the southeastern part of our country here. And first of all, sympathies and condolences to anybody affected there. I've got friends and family near some of those areas that thankfully were blissfully spared any real impact. Certainly nothing like, you know, like maybe some very minor property damage, nothing like they lost their house or no loss of lives or anything like that. So we're very happy there. But moving on from that, I've been around this industry for a while now, and I've seen some things. And one of the things that almost always seems to happen, but very rarely does anybody talk about, is when you run into a case like this, especially in the issue, like when there's flood damage or anytime water's involved, what seems to happen is months after the big disaster event happens, there's this big giant collection of, you know, like say water damaged RVs. Whether they ran through insurance losses or whatever the case may be. What can happen is bunches of these things can get run through auctions and then refunneled back into the used RV market. And usually what happens is they run through auctions in areas where the natural disasters didn't happen, where local dealers and or customers are not expecting to find RVs with those kind of defects. Now, what seems to happen is sometimes there's a lot of what's called like scab work, where there's some real quick surface level gussies up and fixes, putting lipstick on a pig basically to help mask and hide some of the damage that may have happened, so that it looks just good enough to get through an auction, to get through a dealership, to get into your hands. And then after that, who knows? You know, there could be water, mold, something under the skin. I don't know. How do you avoid this? How do you not get taken? You know, especially as a first-time RVer, if you don't know what you don't know. What I kind of suggest here is I go right back to the base advice that I give all the time, is that I'm a huge proponent of third-party independent RV inspections. And, oh, wow, I'm looking at the viewfinder. I've got male pattern baldness, and I still manage to have bad hair days on such a regular basis. I look like an absolute insane person out here right now. Regardless, you get the idea. Because, especially a first-timer, you don't know what you don't know. I don't even care if you're a 10th timer. It might be a couple $100. Spending a couple $100 to get that extra peace of mind and assurance and protection, I just don't know that it's not worth it. So, if you are looking around, if you're not sure what you're looking for, if you don't have an experienced friend to help guide you, consider looking up an RV inspector, and you can usually just Google RV inspector near me or something like that and get some options. So, Wisconsin has recently become the, I think, 20th state now to adopt RV-specific franchising laws. This actually took effect October 1st. I missed this when it actually happened initially. And I've talked about states adopting RV franchising laws, and I've kind of mentioned some brief overview stuff as to what it could mean, but I thought it'd be good to give you a little more specific information as to why this is, I think it's a good thing. Now, it's intended as protection for RV dealers. At the base root, it's intended to be protection for RV dealers, but I think that there's a lot of consumer benefit to it as well. For instance, one of the major things that it does is it improves warranty requirements. You know, the level of liability and stuff the manufacturer has to do. For instance, if a dealer submits a warranty claim on your behalf and they don't hear back, I think it's like in 45 days, which is, to be fair, too long, but at least it's something. If they don't hear back after 45 days, the dealer can auto-complete that, and basically the manufacturer has to pony up the money to do the warranty repair. It also allows dealers in those 20 states to officially be able to reject an RV that's damaged on arrival. Did you know that 30 out of the 50 states, dealers don't necessarily have that right or that ability? And when there's thousands of dollars of shipping costs involved, if a dealer tries to reject the RV back to the manufacturer in many of those states where there's not these specific things can say, fine, we're going to pull your rights to sell our product. Now, I don't think that that's the level of vehemence or ugliness often involved in the industry, but technically, theoretically, in 30 out of 50 states, that is the relationship that exists on paper. So There's some interesting things there. In case you're curious, we've been scrolling a list of the 20 states that actually have adopted these franchising laws over here. And if I forgot, then you're basically just looking at a big empty dirt lot over my shoulder right now. And when it comes to legislation like this, I've kind of found there's two trains of thought. There's the one group that says, well, if it helps protect consumers, I'm all for it. There's also the other group that says, if somebody ever tells you I'm from the government and I'm here to help, make sure you laugh and run away. I'm always curious to know what people's stance on that is. But California has actually recently passed Assembly Bill 1755, the official name here, for something that could be good news for the RV community. I don't know that it was necessarily intended to be that. So from what I gather from this, and I will tell you, I don't speak all the legalese when I'm reading through these assembly bills because they're intentionally made to be as confusing as possible. But from what I gather, it's designed to improve the warranty claim process for, the citizens of California, because this is a California-specific law. But a lot of like the franchising stuff kind of started that way and has since become a common thing in other states as well. So this might just be where it starts. Anyway, what Assembly Bill 1755 says is essentially it's not for it has nothing to do with the traditional warranty claim process. But like if something becomes a major deal and you're like, fine, I'll see you in court, I'm going to lawyer up. That's where this is starting to come in. For those who are unaware, there's a number of very, very large RV manufacturers and brands who have seriously considered the question, do we even continue to do business in the state of California? Because that state alone represents anywhere from 50 to 75% in some cases of those brands basically lawyer court costs, all in just the one state. Now, whether that's because the other states don't have the legislation or whatever, I mean, I don't have all the data. There's definitely some what ifs that I can't answer right now for you. But what this is designed to do is before it gets to that extreme, there is a very real, large number of instances in which the problem a customer is having with an RV could genuinely be resolved if they could just talk to the correct person at an RV manufacturer. But who that is, how you reach them, for some reason, continues to be a mystery in so many cases. And it's stupid. Well, that's what Assembly Bill 1755 is designed to do. More quickly, sooner, I'm going to say encourage, in quotes, and circle back on that, encourage customers and there were all kinds of birds chirping that just stopped all of a sudden. And that's like what happens in a movie when a meteor's getting ready to land. And I wanted to make sure I didn't need to pop out the Wile E. Coyote umbrella here because I thought I was about to get dotted off the face of the earth. Anyway, sorry, my brain goes in weird ways. What Assembly Bill 1755 is designed to do is to get a customer and a manufacturer's appropriate agents in touch more quickly for faster, simpler resolution. And that's very possibly very consumer beneficial. What I kind of personally suspect is that this was designed to ease the burden on the California judicial system because basically the way things were set up with a lot of the extra laws and things that they had in place, that the moment something just wasn't agreed upon in terms of warranty process, it was see in court. That was the next answer. Well, I think maybe they're finding that caused too much to happen there. Now, I said that it encourages people to do this because if you don't, there are literal civil penalties now signed into law by the governor. And they can apply to the manufacturer or the customer if they don't follow these processes. So basically, it's the state of California has officially passed a law that says do everything you can to settle this out of court or you're going to have to pay penalties before we do this. And if you've done everything you can to settle out of court and it's still a problem, then I guess you go to court. But without penalties, hopefully in that instance. But it's that's a thing that's happening. I'll be curious to see if other states follow suit with this. I don't know. It could be a situation where the laws and legislations in California, it's kind of a case where, well, you made your bed and now you sleep in it. Or maybe it gets adopted by more places. Because the thing is, once a state passes legislation, it's very easy for another state to go, okay, copy, paste, let's present this and let's see if we want to pass that too. Hasn't happened yet. I haven't heard any rumblings on it. We'll see how it goes. What do you think should happen there? And as always, not pulling any punches here. Let's just say this right up front before we get too far along. RV sales have continued a year-over-year decline again for the month of August. There we go. Established. I've never tried to use these updates to try to reshape a dialogue or spin any information. So here's the real data, just the pure data on the market right now. So sales year to date, retail registrations year to date, just over 260,000. But if you flip back the calendar a hard 12 months, it was nearly 290,000, which translates to a little over 10% fewer sales happening just with or year to date this year versus last year. Shipments, interestingly, have continued a consecutive 10-month period where more shipments have been sent out from RV manufacturers to RV dealers than the year before. So, sales year over year are down. Shipments year over year are up. What does that mean? Well, rather than read a bunch of stats to you, I'm just going to put a bunch of numbers here on the screen that you can take all the time you want to absorb those. If you need more time to peel through these numbers, by the way, easy thing to do is just hit the pause button on your player. For most playback devices, that will allow you to kind of absorb everything you want, or screenshot on your phone and you can zip around however you'd like to. But I'm not going to belabor over this too much. Essentially, it's just a continuation of what we've seen, the exact same trends from what we've seen in the last 3 or 4 consecutive industry update videos I've put out. The market, obviously, with sales down 10.1%, the market is absolutely slowing down from what it was last year. There's just no question about that. The data flat out says that. That's not open to interpretation. But why? Well, a lot of the people who would have purchased in 2023 and in 2024 already did. They were thinking about it long term, but world things happened, and a lot of the people that were going to be buying now already bought an RV in 2021 and 2022. And because of the way that the market was then, RV pricing was higher than it is now, which is already too high in a lot of people's opinions, but it was frankly significantly higher during those periods. As a result, people have bought RVs that they would love to swap out of, but can't. So that further diminishes the number of people who would be re-entering the market right now. Not even first-timers, but return customers are having a hard time to get right now. So this industry has essentially gone through a sequence I've called robbing Peter to pay Paul. Not that I came up with that phrase, but anyway, you get the idea. And this is the result. Now, but if production, why is production up and sales are down? Well, if you roll back the clock 2 to 3 years ago, the industry was just full tilt cranking out RVs, and they continued. How you doing there? They continue to crank out full tilt too many RVs. Sorry, somebody recognized me. They continue to crank out full tilt too many RVs for too long. And even though the processes had slowed down, the industry just kept producing until they couldn't anymore. And as a result, they had already pre-produced 3 to 6 months worth, in some cases, of RVs. And some factories went those multiple months not producing anything. So production being up 10 consecutive months versus last year, when a lot of RV manufacturers weren't producing anything, isn't really anything to write home about, you know, if you look beyond just 1 year versus 1 year hard data. So essentially the industry is producing now, replacing what it's selling, which is less than it was last year. So that's the what behind the why. But again, not mincing words. Retail registrations, sales are down. That's why Forest River's doing things like closing the California production facility. That's why some brands have done some homogenization that they've never done in the past, because that's what they need to do to remain economically functional and viable so that they can be here, you know, 10 years from now. Those are the hard decisions that have to be made sometimes. And it's navigating those kind of waters. It's the reason that I decided to just remain the RV nerd and not take over my family's store when Bish's RV approached us. I never wanted to manage that. That sounds like a whole lot of not fun, and I'd rather just be out here chatting with you people walking around a bunch of campers. So looking over into the used market, I kept seeing all these reports. Used values dip as autumn and fall approaches. Used values dip. Used values falling. I'm like, oh, cool. So I start looking at these charts that you're looking at. And I was like, am I missing something? The bar chart looks pretty flat the last couple months, and you'll see that it'll end up looking that way in both towable and motorized. And again, if you want some extra time to kind of absorb the information that's on screen here, easy thing to do is either take a screenshot or hit the little pause button there. But technically, yeah, used values have crept down a little bit. Nothing like major to write home about. What's going on there is that new pricing has continued to dip down a little bit. Like I saw, there were some brands like Cougar added multiple enhancements to their product, but it actually is coming in slightly lower invoice than it was last year. So, you know, when you can get a newer RV for less money, that makes the used RVs worth less money because you have to sell it for less to entice a customer to purchase it, you know? A lot of pressure gets put on the used market when that happens. Also, the 2025s are really in full swing and starting to really show up in some pretty good force at dealer lots. When a new model year happens, like when the 2025s first come out, if a dealer has a bunch of old aged product on their lot, sometimes they'll try to do this thing where they only park them out back and they don't let a customer know that they're in there so they can try to, you know, keep as much money possible on the older used one. And as more and more 25s start rolling out, dealers just can't really get away with doing that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying every dealer does that. It's a thing that does happen out there in some cases, though. Well, basically every used RV's value has gone down a little bit. And as you may have noticed by the color of the leaves in the background, there's seasonal effects that are, you know, taking place in here. And it's long been my experience that the cost of an RV seems to have a strong correlation, not a guarantee, but a strong correlation to the temperature, the average temperature across the United States, especially in regions like where I live. Like it's a very seasonal thing. Like some of you Southern customers, you get to camp pretty much all year long. We don't get to do that up here. And, you know, if somebody is going to buy something right now and then have to immediately winterize it and store it and not get to use it for 4 months or whatever, they're going to want to scream a good deal on it to be able to do that. Well, that puts more pressure on the used RV market right now. So one thing I did notice, the average age of the used towables was now 6 years old, a 2019. That's 6 model years old. Not 6 calendar years, but model years. And when a lender is looking at potential lending on a used RV, one of the factors they consider is how many model years old it is. When it's 5 or more, you pretty much lose the ability to get same as new financing. Now, with your personal credit credentials, you may still get some very good finance rates on it, but you do jump into a different rate, often where it's shorter term, sometimes higher interest rate. And what's really weird, if you start looking, there are some instances where you can get a lower payment on a newer RV, even though it's more hard money. It could actually be a lower per month payment as compared to the used RV terms. So there are some instances where if you are exclusively what's called a payment buyer, if you care about nothing other than how much money per month you're spending, you may actually continue to haunt and look for the holdover 2023s if there's any out there, or 24s, and that's where you're going to get your best payment opportunity. But if you are absolutely looking for the lowest total hard money, the used market's always going to be the best option for that. So a couple different ways of looking at it depending on what situation you're in and what you find acceptable. And if you've ever thought to yourself, man, it sure feels like camping is changing and it's suddenly become all about RVing and glamping and all this fancy crap, studies show you're not wrong. You know, the historical, I think, stereotype of camping was we're going to get back to nature, back to basics. We're going to reconnect with a simpler experience and way of life and kind of reset my brain. And if you look over the last 10 years, especially over the last 20, that has changed dramatically. And I think a lot of it is fueled by the average age and number of people camping has shifted dramatically from the historical standard expectation. a lot of historical camping was you had some small family camping, and then the kids grew up, and then eventually, you know, when you got a little bit older, you might get this nice cozy little couples camper. And now, man, it's just all over the place. And you know, pre-COVID to post-COVID, the number of registered RV owners basically doubled. Pretty darn close to basically doubled. And the average age and generational bracket shifted younger, like to an extreme degree. At this point, the millennial and Gen Z age group are the two largest consumer age bracket segments in the RV industry. And realistically, if you were going to manufacture RVs, you want to build what people want to buy. And when more younger people are buying your RV, you build according to that. And what's interesting is that technology has absolutely become a mainstay in this. But that also basically in the whole trend has become, we want less work, less setup, less struggle. More and more people liking the idea of the RV actually literally being set up for them and then just coming to visit the site like a cabin, effectively, like some RV Airbnb kind of thing. And that whole thing is growing. Like, I think Outdoorsy passed something like, was it $3 billion worth? I've seen a lot of numbers recently. I could have that wrong. But I think Outdoorsy's even expanding their rental platform type stuff into Europe pretty soon here. So, you know, there's a huge market for that. But what's interesting is how this has shaped campgrounds also. Campground owners are reporting, like, basically more and more people are wanting the amenities of the luxury resorts. Where actually among millennial and Gen Z buyers, they found that a park having reliable Wi-Fi access was one of their single most important critical decision-making factors on whether they book that location or not. And that's one of those things that I mean, just for the majority of my career, you just went, parks don't have good Wi-Fi. I don't even plan on parks having Wi-Fi, but it's really becoming a thing. And interestingly, the Gen Z millennial age brackets, the RVers, said that they were vastly more likely to stay longer periods when a park had reliable internet access, essentially. So also, I saw this interesting trend. EV charging capabilities at your local site is another thing that people are really looking for. And I think that relates more to the camping crowd isn't exclusively RVing. That's one of the things I don't do a good job of explaining, because this is a very RV-based channel. But the outdoor enthusiast community, more and more people are looking for electric vehicle charging stations. I don't know that applies as much to the RV crowd. Some, certainly. But I don't think that's the growing majority by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know. I'd be kind of curious, like, are there campgrounds that you've been going to for years and years and years that have changed and bulked up and expanded their amenities? Like, some places, you know, they're not just adding cabins. I've seen like fancy, like, safari tents, tree houses. I've seen camping tree houses in some places. I don't know. Have you noticed trends in your local haunts that kind of line up with this, or no? And if you're camping this fall and you see a plant that looks like this, it looks like a bunch of eyes that are staring at you and you want to lock eyes with a plant. If you can lock eyes with a plant, maybe just leave it alone, huh? If you live in the green areas of the map that's being displayed here, you could come across a plant known as Actea pachydo, also known as doll's eyes, also known as white Bainesberry. And like all members of the Bainesberry family, as the name sounds, they're not good for you. It is a toxic plant. Not good for human consumption, and actually sometimes just even messing with some of these things can be bad for you. The funny thing that'll trip you up is you might see birds loving these things. Well, birds have different digestive systems than we do, and they can get away with some of this stuff that we are not equipped to handle. So if you, like I said, if you can lock eyes with a plant and it can look back at you like Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors, then maybe don't mess with it, okay? If we've learned anything from Seymour and Little Shop of Horrors, it's don't mess with the plants that can look back into your soul. Important thing to learn. The more you know. and potentially a sign of a better groundwork for a better ownership and enjoyable experience down the line, the National RV Training Academy, NRVTA, has actually had to increase the number of courses and class sizes that they have available coming into the first quarter of next year because they have so many people signing up to gain their various qualifications. And this is good news, because while there's already thousands of official certified NRVTA people out there, there's a massive need for that training to continue to expand. There are not enough officially trained service staff members out there, and we need more of them. You know, really, in a lot of places, there's nothing that says you need any official certification or training to, like, start your own mobile service business. You could just have Jim, the guy that wrenches on some stuff, out there working on campers. Now, to be fair, I don't think that's really what's happening. I'm not trying to poison the water of the mobile service people. Frankly, they perform a very good service to the RV community, and even as a dealership, we rely on them to take care of customers quite often. So they perform a very good function out there. But the fact is, a lot of them don't necessarily need a lot of training. You just kind of have to have an LLC, you know? But whether it's private owners, whether it's trained people at dealerships, one of the things that I feel is that, first of all, the RVs need to be better from the start. Forest River recently invited me in to a dealership council where there was 4 different dealers there. Like, I was there, the general manager of the general RV PDI facility was there, a couple different people. And if there's one thing dealers love to do, it's call each other liars and say that the other guy's stupid. And all 4 of us pretty much had the same agreement. Yeah, pieces, parts, warranty, that stuff needs to get improved. But one of the things that I really felt was that we need to have the RV come into the store, be delivered to the store in better condition. Because if we can get it right better on the front end, the service side of things becomes less of an issue. But the fact is, we still need to address the service side of things. So groups like the RV Training Academy, NRVTA, as it were, or any of these, RVTI, the more officially trained people we have out there, the better. Actually, Jayco has also recently done some work. I think that was with RVTI, where the coursework you can do to, like, learn how to work on Jayco products can count toward or as the level 3 training there. I should have double checked that before I opened my mouth just now. But there's a growing awareness, a growing need, and a growing emphasis on improving the education level of the average service staff member out there. And that is something we need greatly. But in my book, from my perspective, 2 of the most important things for my year are happening in the month of November. My birthday and my wife's birthday. She's 12 days younger than me. So I guess technically I had a thing for younger women, although not to the extent of someone like, say, Leonardo DiCaprio. So if you appreciate how we take the time to put these videos out there to give you the real information, and like the things like not pulling punches, like saying, hey, sales are down. As a sales-based organization, you would think that's the last thing we would want to put out there, but keep in mind, I couldn't share any of this information without the blessing of the big guys here. And if you appreciate how we've continued that relentless pursuit of transparency, even when the information isn't necessarily in our favor, you know, if you're new with us, hit that subscribe button. Know that we're going to shoot you straight. And if you've come back, regular return member of the RV Nerd Herd, drop me a little like on the video. And if you found some kind of benefit to this, consider sharing it into your favorite little social media groups or anything like that, or whatever little camping circles you have. Until next week, nope, until next month. There we go. Same bat time, same bat channel. There we go. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. So take care, stay safe, have fun, and best wishes from Bishes, everyone. I almost screwed that up. Also, it's still bright. Wow.